11-year-old Randall Condlin calmly walked towards 17-year-old Michael Turpin, pulled a 9mm handgun from his Spider-Man backpack and shot him once in the chest at point-blank range. Michael died instantly as families enjoying the sunshine screamed and ran for cover, the sharp echo of gunfire shattering the peace of the park. Witnesses described the small boy as disturbingly calm, no trembling hands, no hesitation, before he tucked the weapon back into his bag and simply walked away, leaving behind a lifeless teenager and a crowd frozen in disbelief. San Diego's postcard image of perfect beaches and year-round sunshine had long hidden an undercurrent of gang tension creeping into younger neighborhoods. And now that darkness had erupted in broad daylight. The east side of Balboa Park, better known for its museums, gardens, and the famous zoo, had quietly become contested ground between the West Side Locos and the East Side Kings, two gangs fighting to control drug sales. These invisible borders were obvious to gang members, but unseen by families and tourists, turning parts of the park into a collision of innocent recreation and dangerous turf warfare. Police had already noticed how gangs were recruiting younger and younger kids, but no one imagined an elementary school boy would become an assassin. Randall didn't fit any familiar picture of a killer. He lived in a middle-class home, attended Lincoln Elementary, had no criminal record, and was described by teachers as quiet and polite. His parents had divorced 3 years earlier, both working full-time, leaving him alone most afternoons. Into that loneliness stepped older neighborhood boys from the West Side Locos, who used children like Randall for errands that carried light legal consequences because of their age. Over the months before the shooting, he had started hanging around them, but neither his parents nor his teachers saw the danger growing around him. The victim, Michael Turpin, was a senior at San Diego High School, a gifted basketball player being scouted by colleges. Though he had family ties to the rival East Side Kings, friends said he'd been trying hard to leave that life behind to chase his athletic dreams. Yet tensions between the two gangs had spiked in recent weeks. Graffiti, fights, even 2 non-fatal stabbings near the park, turning Michael into an easy symbol of the enemy. His murder was less about him personally and more about sending a message through the most shocking messenger possible, a child. Within hours, the story dominated national headlines. Parents kept kids home, park attendance collapsed, and city officials faced outrage over how gang recruiters had reached into elementary schools. The tragedy forced experts to ask how much an 11-year-old could truly grasp about death, morality, or consequence, and whether the justice system was even built to handle something like this. Investigators combed every detail, including surveillance footage from a museum roughly 100 yards away, showing Randall entering the park 20 minutes before the shooting, backpack slung over one shoulder, his face focused and serious rather than playful like the other kids. 8 minutes after the fatal shot, the same camera caught him leaving, his posture stiff, his walk direct, not wandering. The footage, along with witness reports describing his white and blue striped polo and khaki shorts, became key evidence. Even attempts to wash those clothes couldn't erase the traces later found on them. What unsettled detectives most was his demeanor. Witnesses recalled the boy strolling away as if leaving a friend's house, utterly unshaken. No crying, no panic, no visible fear. That eerie calm suggested either that he didn't understand what he had done, or worse, that he did and simply didn't care. Psychologists debated whether it was immaturity or the early signs of a chilling emotional detachment that sometimes foreshadows deeper violence. As the sun went down over San Diego that September evening, the body of Michael Turpin was taken to the county medical examiner's office, and a once peaceful city found itself staring at the face of something it could barely comprehend. An innocent-looking child who had just rewritten the limits of juvenile crime. That night, San Diego found itself facing painful questions about how a boy still young enough to play with toys could become a weapon of gang violence. Parents across the city held their children tighter, Schools prepared crisis counselors, and police began the impossible task of investigating a murder where the prime suspect wasn't even old enough to see a PG-13 movie alone. The case shook the very core of the legal system's ideas about juvenile offenders, forcing an entire community to confront how it had failed both boys, one whose life ended violently, and one whose life was forever altered by a single act that no child should ever commit. Months later, Michael Turpin's bedroom remained frozen in time, a silent shrine to a future stolen at just 17. His basketball trophies still lined the shelves, college recruitment letters still pinned to the board, and his San Diego High varsity jersey still hung on the back of his door. His mother, Tasha Turpin, a nurse who had raised Michael and his younger siblings alone after their father's death from cancer 5 years earlier, couldn't bring herself to move a single thing. Every photo on the wall showed her son in motion, dribbling, smiling, shining. A new letter from UCLA sat proudly among them, an invitation he would never answer. He was going to be the first in our family to go to college, she told reporters, her eyes on a team photo that now hurt to look at. Basketball was his way out, his way to show the world he could be more than what this neighborhood expects of young black men. Michael had balanced a 3.4 GPA with his place on the basketball team, admired for his discipline and leadership. His coach, James Hernandez, called him a natural leader, a big brother figure who pushed others to be their best. The recruitment letters meant more than talent. They were his shot at rewriting destiny, a chance ended by one bullet. He'd grown up surrounded by gang influence, watching childhood friends drift into the same cycle he fought to avoid. His uncle, DeAndre Turpin, once tied to the East Side Kings, admitted that Michael knew exactly where that road led, either a cell or a grave, and he refused both. Basketball was his shield, DeAndre told mourners at a service in the high school gym. While others were out there, he stayed in the gym. Friends remembered him as funny and loyal, a light in any room, but fiercely focused when chasing goals. His best friend, Jamal Tierce, tearfully recalled how Michael woke him up at 5 a.m. to shoot hoops before school, saying, "While others are sleeping, we're improving." His girlfriend of 2 years, Brianna Lopez, spoke softly about his tenderness and their shared dreams. College, maybe pro basketball, then returning home to coach kids like him. The cruelest part was that even though he avoided the streets found him. Through an 11-year-old boy who likely knew nothing about him beyond a color and a boundary. Police later discovered that Michael had gone to Balboa Park that day to meet his mentor, a former college player who helped promising students with training. The bench near the basketball court had always felt safe, but it unknowingly sat on disputed ground between gangs. His last text read, "See you in 10." When his mentor arrived, flashing lights had already replaced laughter. At the funeral, more than 1,000 mourners, his team, classmates, coaches, and even college scouts filled the gym. The air trembled with grief and fury, grief for a life full of promise, and fury that a child had been molded into a killer. His number 23 jersey was retired in an emotional ceremony, and the principal announced the Michael Turpin Scholarship Fund to help student athletes who embodied his drive. "We can't bring him back," the principal said, handing Tasha a framed copy of his jersey, "but we can keep his dream alive." In the weeks that followed, the Turpin family endured whispers that tried to blame Michael's neighborhood or relatives for his death. Claims quickly silenced by proof of his grades, his character, and his discipline. "My son was never in a gang," she said at a press conference, her voice trembling but strong. "He was killed because of where he lived, not who he was. He was building something better." The basketball courts at San Diego High turned into a glowing memorial, covered with flowers, candles, sneakers, and notes of love.
Even late at night, the sound of bouncing balls echoed through the dark as kids shot hoops for him, wearing shirts with his number and the words, "Long live Michael." On the wall overlooking the court, artists painted him in his jersey beneath a sunset sky, his bright smile immortalized with 3 words that captured everything he stood for: dreams don't die.
Maria Gonzalez, the director of the community center where Michael volunteered, said that the mural, painted in his honor, wasn't just about grief, it was about hope. The artist wanted to create a daily reminder of the potential that lives inside every young person, a potential that deserves to be nurtured, not destroyed. What made Michael's death even more heartbreaking was learning that he had recently begun mentoring younger kids at that very center, teaching them basketball fundamentals while constantly stressing the value of education. He knew kids listened to him because he had achieved something they admired, Maria explained softly. He'd tell them, "The same discipline that makes you better at sports will make you better at life." And they believed him. Many of those children came to his funeral, clutching small basketballs covered in their goodbye messages to Coach Michael, their young faces clouded with confusion, struggling to understand how someone so strong, so full of promise, could be gone. The cruelest twist, that he'd been killed by a child barely older than his students, was not lost on anyone. At exactly 2:17 p.m., 911 dispatchers in San Diego began receiving frantic calls from Balboa Park. Terrified voices shouted about gunfire, about a teenager lying bleeding near the basketball courts. "There's blood everywhere, please hurry," one woman cried, trying to comfort Michael as he struggled for breath while shielding her own children's eyes from the horror. Within 4 minutes, first responders arrived, but it was too late. A single bullet to the chest had destroyed his heart and lungs. The bright afternoon that had drawn families to the park turned into chaos. Parents screaming, clutching their kids, rushing toward the exits as officers raced in, taping off the area that quickly expanded to nearly a quarter of the park. Detective Ryan Thomas, a 15-year veteran of the San Diego Police Department and an expert on gang-related homicides, arrived 20 minutes later. The scene stunned him. The open daylight, the crowd, the fearless execution. "The first thing that hit me," he would later testify, "was how packed this place must have been. Whoever did this didn't care who saw. They wanted it seen. They wanted the message to be public and loud." The investigation was immediately complicated by the chaos of the setting. Hundreds of footprints trampling through the scene. Picnic trash, park debris, and panicked visitors everywhere. Crime scene technicians carefully photographed every inch, placing numbered evidence markers across the basketball court as detectives worked to separate terrified witnesses from the crowd, each person's version of the shooting adding another piece to a puzzle that seemed too unreal to belong to an 11-year-old's hands.